Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, we'll be drafting out this Queen Anne neckline dress. So if you're interested in this kind of video, keep on watching. So I already went ahead to draft out my basic bodies. I do this all the time on the channel. In case you don't know how to do it, I'm going to leave a link on how to draft out your basic bodies in the comment section. So let me quickly run through all these points that I have here. So the distance from my shoulder to my chest line is 8 inches. I drew a straight line across. The distance from my shoulder to my bust point is 10 inches. Distance from my shoulder to my under bust point is 13 inches. And distance from my shoulder to my waist point is 16 inches. The distance from my shoulder to the length of this pattern paper is 24 inches, and I added 1 inch for stitching allowance. It's this long because I am sewing an inbuilt corset, so that is why the pattern paper is long. I went ahead also to take half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. I took the same measurement on my chest line and I went ahead to cover out my armhole. So for this straight line, I went ahead to take my bust band measurement, which is my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. I took the measurements on my chest line, on my bust point, on my under bust point, on my waistline, and on the length of this pattern paper, and I ruled a straight line across. So on my chest line, I'm going to go up by 2 inches because I don't want my bust to be exposed. So in case I haven't mentioned, this is a corset dress, so I'm going to connect from the chest line to meet the 2 inches point that I just made. On my under bust point, I'm going to take 1.5 inch for my dart. So I'll take 1.5 inch on the center front, I'll take 1.5 inch on the side front, and then I'm going to connect using my ruler to meet the length of this pattern paper like this. The next thing I'm going to do is to tighten my over bust. To do that, on this straight line, I'm going to go out by 1 inch on the left and 1 inch on the right. After doing that, I'm going to connect the dart on my under bust line to meet my bust point using my ruler. So look at the way I'm placing my ruler. The line is not straight, it's a bit curvy. Make sure it's not too curvy. So after connecting, I'm going to go ahead and connect the lines that I have on the chest line. I'm going to connect those lines to meet my bust point like this. So I'm going to go ahead and blend everything together so I don't have any sharp edge on the bust point. After doing that, I'm going to create like a sweetheart neckline. So I'm just going to place my ruler like this and I'm going to give it a curve like this. If you don't have a ruler, go ahead and use your free hand. And on the other end, I'm also going to place my ruler like this, and then I'll curve it into the armhole area just like this. I'm going to shade out my dart, so this is where we are going to cut. After doing that, I'll go ahead and place my measurements. So on my bust point, I'm going to place my bust circumference divided by 4, and I'll add 2.5 inches for my stitching allowance. On my waistline, I'll place my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll replace my dart of 2 inches and I'll add 2.5 inches for stitching allowance. On the length of this pattern paper, I will take my hip circumference divided by 4 and I'll add 2.5 inches for stitching allowance. On the base of the pattern paper, I'm just going to go up by 2 inches just because I don't want the base to be straight, but if you want it to be straight, you can leave it. I'm just going to go up by 2.5 inches like this, and I'll use my ruler to connect to meet the center front just like this. After doing that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and cut. So after cutting, guys, this is what I have. So I'm going to place them on each other like this just to cover that up, and I'm going to use my tape to hold it down. I'll bring back my yoke, and then I'm going to determine how wide I want my neckline to be. So I'm taking 2.5 inches. You can take 3 inches, it depends on what you want. On the other end, which is on the armhole area, I'm going to go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and then I'm going to slant from there into the neckline area. So I'm going to place the yoke like this, making sure that the center front is matching. So just look at what I'm doing. The center front of the yoke and the center front of this main bodies is matching, they are the same. Then I'm going to bring in my tape and I'm going to mark 4 inches. So just look at what I'm doing. I'll place my tape on the center front like this, and I'll go inward by 4 inches. I'll indicate that with a dot. So that was how wide I want the yoke area to be opened. If you don't understand, just look at what I'm doing. So I'm going to connect from that 4 inches to meet the 3 inches on my shoulder line, just like this. I took 2.5 inches, but I decided to still go inward by half an inch. So I'm just going to mark 3 inches for the wideness of my neckline, and I'm going to connect from there to meet the 4 inches that I just came in with on the chest line. So guys, I'll go ahead and cut, and then I'll label this my yoke. So this is our yoke for the Queen Anne neckline. The next thing I'll do is to figure out where to sew the yoke. So I'm going to come in on the side front. I'm going to go in by half an inch because we are still going to join the cup together. So I'll go in by half an inch like this, and I'm going to use my marker to mark that point. So this is the point where I'm going to sew the yoke to when I'm sewing. So after doing that, I'm going to just go ahead and trim out the excess pattern paper that we have on the armhole area. So the next thing I'll do is just to remove the tape on the front, and then we'll go ahead and cut the back with before I'll come back and finish up with the front. So this is my pattern paper for the back. I went ahead to repeat the same thing that I did for the front piece. I took the distance from my shoulder to my chest line, distance from my shoulder to my bust point, and distance from my shoulder to my waistline. Now the length of the back is not going to be the same length for the front. They are just going to meet on the waistline. So I took half of my shoulder measurement divided by 2. I took the same measurement on my chest line, and I drew a straight line, and I also went ahead to curve out my armhole. To determine the length of the back, I'm going to bring my front piece, the side front of my front piece, and I'm going to place it like this. So I'm placing the chest line on the chest line. So I'm going to mark this point where I went up by 2 inches while I was drafting the front, and I'm going to use my marker to mark that point. So that is where the back length is going to stop. So I went ahead to draw a straight line across. So the next thing I'll do is to take my neck width of 3 inches. Remember, we used 3 inches for the front. I'm going to go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and then I will slant into the neckline like this. For my neck depth, I'll take 1 inch, and then I'll use my ruler to connect from there to meet the neck width. So this back piece is also going to have a yoke. So from my neckline, I'll go down by 1 inch. After doing that, on my chest line, I'm going to go in by 4 inches, just like this. and then I'm going to connect from this 1 inch to meet this 4 inch. So look at what I'm doing. I'm going to curve it just like this. So this side that I'm curving is going to be open. So I'm going to start placing my measurements. On my bust point, I'll take my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll add 2.5 inches for stitching allowance. On my waistline, I'll take my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll add 2.5 inches for stitching allowance. And on the length, I'll take my hip circumference divided by 4 and I'll add stitching allowance. On my chest line, I'm also going to go in by 3 inches because I'm going to be adding loop to the back. So that is how open I want the back to be. I'm going to slant from that 3 inches to meet the base of this pattern paper. So I'm doing a V-shaped back, and then I'm going to shade it off, and this part is where I'm going to be adding my button. So after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and cut. I'm not adding that to this. So guys, after cutting, this is what I have. So I have my yoke and the main bodies. So I'm going to cut the cup for the front. I'll bring in my side front, and then I'm going to go inward by 4.5 inches. So just look at the way I'm placing my tape. I'll mark 4.5 inches, and then I'll use my ruler to create a curve from that 4.5 inches to meet my under bust line, just like this, and from there I'll connect to meet the armhole area. And for my center front, I'm going to place my tape on the chest line. I'll mark half an inch, and on the bust line I'll also mark half an inch. I'll use my ruler to connect the half an inch into a straight line, and from that point I'm going to connect to meet my under bust point. So if you don't understand, just look at what I'm doing. My camera stopped recording, but I'm still going to show you guys what I did. I used my ruler to connect the half an inch into a straight line, and then I placed my ruler on the straight line, and then I curved to meet the under bust point. And yeah, after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. So this is what we'll be using to cut out the fabric for the cup. So yeah, that brings us to the end of this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Don't forget to leave your questions in the comment section. I don't know when I'll be uploading the sewing version, hopefully soon. See you guys in the next one.